All right, everybody. Welcome into the PHU Dynasty Podcast, episode 33. The season has started. I am not doing this one solo, thankfully. That was a lot of talking the last time. So I'm here with Sean O'Shea.
I'm back.
He's back in action. He's ready to talk about these big week one matchups. Ours probably was the least exciting.
I'm surprised I got an invite when I beat somebody by 100 points.
It was truly, I think it might be the first 100-point victory. It's possible that it's happened before, but I can't remember me ever scoring lower than 60. So that was scary to look at. But I also had quite a few duds, so literal goose eggs. So we'll see if we can improve upon that. But we have a jam-packed show today. We have our recaps of what happened week one. Then we have the week 2 previews. We're also going to talk about some of the waiver claims here in a second. And then we also have, as promised, the film segment, which went to Scavelli's team. I gave him the coin flip on that one. And his 5-0 prize will be us breaking down a couple of plays that I've cut up. So hopefully that's some fun. The player is very exciting, so I'm excited to talk about it. All right. So week one, let's start right out the gate with the waivers. So we'll do all the week one review stuff, but let's talk about waivers. So there was 15 waiver claims for week one, and it seems like, Sean, that's usually the case.
Yeah, it's always heavy. Everybody tries to do the overreaction Monday, Tuesday, whatever you want to call it for the NFL. But yeah, this is always the heaviest waiver week of the year. But I mean, for our league, it's not overly exciting with how deep our rosters are. But I mean, you find some diamonds in the rough every year.
There's still guys. I'm pretty sure. I mean, actually, I don't even want to say pretty sure. Was Elijah Mitchell one of those guys last year, or was he just on a roster previous to the first week? I think he was on a roster now I think about it.
Not sure. It wouldn't surprise me either way. But
pretty sure Dustin had him at one point.
That's the San Francisco backfield.
Yeah, that's pretty normal. So right at the top, I claimed Josh Kelly as my first claim. Then Dustin picked up Taysom Hill after that. Just what seems to be an outlier, probably not going to be a recurring theme.
That's tight end 3 to you, Taysom Hill?
Tight end 3 with a rushing touchdown. And like 70. I had like a 60-yard run.
I mean, are Taysom Hill design runs more valuable than tight end targets?
Yes.
I think they might be.
I think they are, especially for some tight ends that don't have any juice to do anything with the targets. Then yeah, like if you're talking about like a target for, some blocking, like a Cade Otton,
right,
as opposed to a run for Taysom Hill, I'm taking the Taysom Hill probably.
Like look at like Tyler Conklin had like 4 for 16, but he got rescued by a touchdown. Like Taysom Hill could do that with rushing.
You gotta know James is pissed at Dustin too for that claim, because James needs the tight end so bad, and he's the perfect guy. Just throw in there and hope for anything.
Wait, are you telling me Austin Hooper did not work out?
We'll get to that, Sean. We will get to that. Everybody on this podcast should know my Austin Hooper thoughts, but we'll get to that. Speaking of tight ends, OJ Howard to Tibbs at the third claim. A lot of claims on him. I think there's 4 total. Also, James claiming that one and not getting him.
The big overreaction of the week. He played less than 20% of snaps and had 2 targets. They were just both touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, we know he's got the athletic upside to do it. Maybe Houston's the one that unlocks him. I doubt it, but you could do a lot worse, on a projection standpoint at tight end. So you might as well just pick him up and see if he could keep it up. Kylen Granson, James actually does get a tight end here. Granson had a bunch of targets. Granted that none of those targets were anything special, but he had 7 of them and played 50% of the snaps. And I like Kylen Granson coming out of SMU a couple years ago, but I just wasn't sure if he was going to be anything more than like a shitty version of Trey Burton. So it's kind of what he looks like so far. Alex picking up Geno Smith.
Not surprising.
The guy needs the quarterbacks. Geno didn't play all that bad week 1. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. Let Geno cook. I think he had like 200 yards and a touchdown or something like that. Let me look up that number real quick.
They have a touchdown pass to Will Dissly.
Yeah, 195 and 2 touchdowns. That's a very Geno Smith stat line. I mean, maybe throw a couple picks in there every once in a while. DeAndre Carter for Vince. That was actually an interesting opening week for Carter because I didn't really expect anything. I thought he was the 5th receiver on the depth chart at the time, and he goes for 12 points after Keenan Allen goes out with a hamstring injury, I believe. So he had 3 for 64 and a touchdown. What do you think? Is this flash in the pan, or is he actually going to be like a decent slot guy?
He could be the start until Keenan Allen comes back. I mean, it's a great offense. They start in 11 personnel, I'm pretty sure. I don't know. They changed it up a lot. They played a lot of tight ends too. But
yeah, I think Donald Parham is also injured too, so that might make more opportunities for 3 wide sets.
Yeah, I would imagine he's third in the receiving pecking order behind Mike Williams and Josh Palmer. But he outsnapped Guyton for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I believe that 100%. All right, we're going to skip some of these later claims. I'll just go through them. Dan got the Giants. I picked up Brandon Bolden. Dustin gets Juwan Johnson. Tibbs picked up the Seahawks D. James picks up Dante Pettis.
Oof.
Wants another round of Dante Pettis. Cade York, the Cleveland rookie kicker who kicked a freaking what looked like a 80-yarder last week. Matt Breida and Younghoe Koo, who also had a great week 1. And then James goes back to the well on Marlon Mack as well. So quite an active week 1 on the waiver wire. Probably won't see quite that many moves next week unless it's like me and Tibbs just shuffling in and out. All right, so that is the waiver claims. Let's get into the recaps. I'm going to pull up our fancy graphics. And the first one that we should talk about, because it was 1, the best game, and 2, we expected it to be the best game. It was the Lambs and the Battle Axes. And I don't want to say best in terms of most points, but just the game that we thought would be probably the closest battle of contenders for sure. So James finishes the week just behind the Battle Axes, 7 points behind at 121 to 128. Herbert looks like Justin Herbert, right? He looks exactly how we thought he was going to look. I saw some crazy clips of some insane throws. Let's see. Actually, hold on one second. We got to go to the comments section. We got Vinny P saying he thinks he beats Alex beat Tibbs by 100 points in his championship. I don't even know about that, but that might be an archive lookup. That seems crazy. I just can't remember that off the top of my head. Yeah, so Justin Herbert played great. James got exactly what you expect out of that. And if you've noticed, I've kind of set these graphics up by left side is the good, right side's not so good. But James had so many quality players that McCaffrey turned out to be like somewhat of a disappointment at 11 points. So Mixon also played excellent, 14.5 points, got a ton of carries, pretty much all the carries. I mean, I just hate seeing P. Ryan on the field. I saw him a couple of times on like special teams. It's like, what are you doing? Just get off this team. You don't need to be here. Mike Evans, AJ Dillon also had good games for James. AJ Dillon had more carries and opportunities than Aaron Jones. What do you think about that, Sean?
That was surprising. I did not think he was going to get that much work in the receiving game. He led the team in receiving in week 1. So I don't know. I think it's going to bounce. It's going to fluctuate throughout the year. But I mean, 50-50, it looks like it's going to be the whole way, at least, like in his favor anyway.
Yeah, I kind of thought, especially because they were down early, that the passing game work and Aaron Jones's game style or play style would be more advantageous for the Packers, but they really kept it a 50-50 split. It was pretty interesting. Evans had a great week 1 against the Cowboys. Pretty much they couldn't stop him at all. He just caught every target he was thrown. CeeDee Lamb and the Cowboys in general do not look good as of right now. It's going to be a rough sled over these next few weeks without Dak specifically. Lamb definitely takes a major hit for the Lambs. Definitely not the start that he was hoping for. that being said, we thought that Lamb was going to be a target monster, and he was. I think he had like 10 targets. Granted, 2 of them turned into interceptions. I think it just wasn't great, but he got the ball. You can't say that he didn't get the ball.
Targets aren't great if you can catch them.
No, is Cooper Rush an upgrade over Dak? Ugh. Let's talk about it now. Austin Hooper, 0.6. 6 yards, 1 catch.
It's not great.
It's not great. James, I believe, also has Noah Fant, and I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think he had a couple of catches, but that was a weird split in that Seattle tight end room where Colby Parkinson, Will Dissly, and Noah Fant all were involved somehow, and none of them did anything other than Dissly's touchdown, which can't be expected to repeat. So it's a weird way up there. But Hooper at week 1 does not give you any promise that he's going to be a starter this year. Christian McCaffrey, I kind of threw him on this right side because it's not so much the production. Like 11 points is fine, but I believe he only had like 10 carries.
Right.
And
that's weird.
It just wasn't, especially in a game where it was somewhat close. I mean, they were down, but it's not like they were out of the game. Like, use your best player. I just don't understand. I think Matt Rule is going to get fired mid-season. That's where I'm at, because that team stinks, man. They just cannot figure it out, and they don't know how to use their best players, more included. I don't know what they're doing there.
It's not like he's not McCaffrey. Every time he touched the ball in that game, he probably broke like 3 tackles and gained an extra 5 yards that, I don't know, 90% of running backs wouldn't have gotten.
Yeah, that's gonna be a theme for today's episode with the Phillips segment later. But that whole ability to just not fall down and get an extra 5 yards is something he does as good as anybody in the league, and they just don't use it, and it's sad. But I really think the Panthers are going to be in rough shape. I mean, they have a good defense, but I think this offense, they just don't know what the hell they're doing. Let's go down to Scavelli's team. Speaking of Barkley, just balling out. Great. The trade is looking excellent for Mr. Scavelli early in the season. He traded 2 first-round picks and some other stuff to get him. It's looking like it's hitting right now. Barkley looks legit. The juice is back for sure. Then we got Diggs at 19.2 points. Looked phenomenal in that first weekend matchup. Caught the long touchdown over Jalen Ramsey. Pretty much made Ramsey his bitch the entire night.
Sure did.
So you can't say anything bad really about Diggs' performance. I think the one on this left side of the screen that I'm probably the most excited about after week 1 outside of Barkley is Fournette. I mean, they looked like they wanted to run the shit out of the ball way more than in years past, and they were playing power runs, they were doing tosses, they were doing runs that the Bucs hadn't been doing in previous 2 years with Arians. So it seems like they want to make a ton of usage out of these running backs, and it could have just been game plan because the Cowboys run defense isn't anything special, or to try to take some of the heat off Brady in that so offensive line right now. But Fournette looked excellent with every touch he had. He is a true battering ram, and I think they're going to use him a lot this year.
Any concern? I'm not as plugged into the Bucs as most of the people in this league are, but he didn't play like the entire fourth quarter, which in that game wouldn't have surprised me. But I think he limped off the field when he did leave.
Yeah, I mean he might have a little bit of a bang up type deal going on there, but as far as the fourth quarter, the Bucs, everybody in the stadium knew that the Bucs won the game, and there wasn't really any reason to play any of these top line guys. I'm actually surprised that they left Brady in as long as they did. As soon as Rush came out, I was like, I thought we were getting Gabbert. There's just no reason to keep playing. But
Brady didn't come off the field, but you have to like pry him off the field.
Yeah, he doesn't want to come off the field. But Rachaad White got a lot of run and actually looked pretty good too. So I think the Bucs are in great shape with their running game right now. Gerald Everett down here at 11.4 points might be the beneficiary of some Keenan Allen targets perhaps in these next couple of weeks. Looks like a pretty good little pickup from Scavelli there to get some production out of the tight end position while Kittle's out. Let's go to the right side. Allen Floppinson literally did nothing yeah, it's very very Bears-like performance from Allen Robinson,
Scary.
which is very
Really
scary
scary.
because you got a lot of that last year.
He was like the like NFL insider like favorite for bounce back this year, like insider, like fantasy wise. Like everybody was
I
on
may or
him.
may not have some cash on that as well.
Me too.
I put a stupid number out there for that one because I think it was like plus 2,500 or something. I was like, maybe I'll give it a go just to see what happens. But after week one, not great. I guess there's time to rebound. I saw a few videos too saying just like how open he was the whole night, and they just didn't throw him the
Really?
ball because
He
Stafford's
wasn't.
just pretty much he's just laser locked on Cup. It seems like every play, and that's for good reason. He makes plenty of catches, but
The passes that went to Skoranek, did he think they were Cooper Cup?
I think it's possible. It's very possible. I wouldn't put it past him. Another dud, and this is kind of followed up by my or preceded, I should say, by my comments last time on the podcast where I was saying this might be a checks in the bank situation. Mike Williams, just one catch for 10 yards. Are you concerned about Mike Williams, especially in this offense?
Not yet. He's such an ebb and flow guy. Like he'll go like 8 weeks where he's like the number one receiver in fantasy, and then he'll like disappear, or like he'll have smaller chunks of the season where he's just a no-show and then just flash. And he did that
true.
Probably the last year and a half, I think. I think
he did it last year for sure. I mean, he had the first 8
sure.
weeks were insane.
And then I think the year before with Herbert, I think he had like a good stretch and he got hurt or something. It's been a while. My memory did not take me that far back, but I remember like him having like flashes the year before that too, outside of injury. But
yeah, he's been a flashy guy.
I would give it like a good 3 weeks before I would be worried about Mike Williams.
Yeah, I think this next week, especially if Keenan Allen doesn't play, if he doesn't produce with Keenan Allen out, then we have some issues, I think. Another disappointing performance was Adam Thielen at 36 yards. I really just think it's going to be the Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson show, and then Thielen's going to have to just get a touchdown in order to stay startable, because I don't think the yardage is really going to be there this year. That being, the game script wasn't great for him last week either. Though.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about Thielen either this year. Outside of injury, that's always the biggest risk with him. But the same thing, like I think they just really wanted to feature Jefferson and Cook that first game.
They just wanted to light up that Packers defense with their studs. I don't blame them.
The Packers also decided like that they didn't know how to play defense when you put a receiver in motion. They decided to put, I think 50% of Justin Jefferson's routes were on linebackers or defensive ends.
Oh yeah, I saw a couple where Preston Smith were covering him. I was like, this is not ideal.
The Packers were not ready for that game whatsoever. Defense,
not even a little bit.
So I don't. It could change, and not that the Eagles' defense was ready for Week 1 either. So we'll see that game on Monday night. But
yeah, it's
at least the Eagles have 2 decent cornerbacks, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, Eagles are an interesting team too, because I wasn't impressed with their defense Week 1 either.
Well, they're not playing their best defenders because they have the veterans that they don't want to bench.
I get it. Yeah,
but that's not a fantasy football talk. So
that's a whole nother thing. All right, so that is that matchup. Scavelli goes to 1-0. James drops to 0-1. Let's go to the next one. We got the Lampposts versus the Muskrats in an absolute shootout. Lots of points being scored in this one. Might match my entire season's point total if at this point. The Lampposts drop a 164 burger, and the Muskrats really impressed me with their 146. I did not put them that high in the preview episode prior to Week 1, but he definitely got quite a bit of help from a number of players on his team. So let's go ahead and start off with the Muskrats. Josh Allen, Week 1, literal stud, 37 points, almost got the 40 burger. There's not even much. We all know he's really good. So he's QB1 right now. It's probably going to stay that way. Or actually QB2 behind Mahomes probably. Then Gibson was quite a surprise with 13 points.
A lot of targets.
Way more targets than I thought. And McKissick also had 4 to 5 targets as well. So they have plenty of there's a lot of throwing in that game. Just an obscene amount of throwing in that game because Dotson had a lot of catches.
Wentz threw like 57 times, 56 times.
I mean, that's absurd. Like that should most games that should not happen. But yeah, Gibson seemed to be a great asset for week one. You know, Robinson not being there right now is giving him a chance to show that he's still got that starting job. So I'm a big fan of that week one performance. Jefferson at 31 points. He had, I think, 126 yards and 2 touchdowns at halftime. And I was like, are we going to get like a 50 burger? Like it was possible. It was in the realm of possibility. So I was getting hyped for it, but then they kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit there in the second half. So, maybe not that electric performance for 50 points, but still a tremendous game. Literally almost outscored my entire team. Then Devontae Adams, another acquisition for the Lamppost, had a great game. I didn't even put Travis Kelce on this list, who also had a big game for the Lampposts. All the moves seem to be working so far. It's not just week one, but everything seems to be firing on all cylinders for the Lamppost. The only real duds are here on the right. DK Metcalf, 1.6 points. I think he had like 30-something yards and a fumble or something like that. So
7 catches, I think.
Yeah, 7 catches for 36 yards. If you would have told me that he had 7 catches without telling me the yards, I would have said he went for like 125 and a touchdown. But it turned out to be 36 yards.
The depth of target's not great. You're going to be hoping for him to just absolutely just bust tackles, which he can, but
he's
also
great after the catch.
The ball when he tried to. So
I think really if you're a Metcalf or Tyler Lockett owner, are you hoping for like Geno Smith to just implode and Drew Lock start so we can get some just fire at downfield specials? Like,
I mean, Metcalf averaged more points per game with Geno last year than he did with Russ. So
that's crazy.
Maybe
it's just a product of the game plan.
Yeah.
Maybe next week's different. Mark Andrews at 52 yards, I believe. Not great, but they were spreading the ball around quite a bit in that game. They also ran it quite a few times as well. So
had a really nice defensive play. He got a touchdown broken up by Sauce Gardner in the end zone. I don't know if you saw that play or not, but
I did see that, and that could have been easily been a touchdown on most cornerbacks. Andrews also, Isaiah Likely, the other tight end, who people were thinking was gonna make a big impact, had 4 targets and 0 catches. So it doesn't look like he's gonna be a huge threat right now. But the targets are interesting that he got 4.
He looked like it was his first NFL game. Like watching the game.
I think he dropped one and just couldn't get a couple things right. So we'll see. And then Dameon Pierce at 3.9 points. And I think people may have gotten a little bit too excited perhaps on week one, Dameon Pierce, but going forward, there's still going to be opportunities for him. So, and I think Lovie Smith said after the game that he wants to get him involved more often, which you would think, right? Like,
why don't you play your starter more than Rex Burkhead?
Why don't you play your team? Dude, the Lovie Smith week one was just a disaster. Like, just playing for a tie when they really should just be trying to lose in reality. At least they're not tanking.
Who had a worse week one, Lovie Smith or Hackett?
Hackett's worse.
It's so bad.
Hackett was disastrous.
So bad.
Dude, you can't. The way they just I think they wasted like 35 seconds and just did nothing.
Did you watch the Manning cast of
I saw the clip afterwards.
Life just leaving his eyes are like, oh my god, they're playing for the field goal.
I feel like everybody that's watched more than 10 NFL games could tell you that was the wrong decision. Like, it's just so bad. We got a comment here from James Seafu on Metcalf. So let's see. Seattle wants to be run first, ball control. Only Metcalf, I think, is startable at receiver.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, Lockett is not going to be. I think everybody knew, and that was baked into his ADP and redrafts. Like, nobody was drafting Tyler Lockett in the top 10 rounds. Like, we knew it wasn't going to be good.
I think this score for Metcalf, maybe not like the fumble, but like a few catches for like 30 to 50 yards isn't out of his like range of outcomes now, which is but he could also break tackles and run for like 2 long touchdowns in a game.
Yeah.
I just I'm not surprised. That's all, James.
Yeah. I don't think anybody's truly surprised. It's just a matter of, when are these long plays going to happen? And if they do, are you even going to have them in your lineup to start them?
Yeah, I think he needs to be in any team in this league. I think he's a starting receiver on a team.
I mean, he's my wide receiver one, no doubt.
Yeah.
All right, so that is the lamppost. Let's go down to the Muskrats. Jameis Winston got a nice almost 26-point performance week 1 against the Falcons. You really can't ask for anything more. That's probably what you're hoping for every week from Winston.
The points are week 1 against the Falcons.
Both. Yeah. I choose both. Yeah, he played good, and he actually looked decent. I mean, the plays I saw on TV actually like had some semblance of an NFL quarterback.
Did you see his splits between the first 3 quarters and the fourth quarter?
He was crazy.
Came out hot in the fourth quarter.
I can't believe the Falcons put up that much of a fight. I'm impressed with the Falcons.
I can't believe they imploded that much. I mean,
that I can believe. I can absolutely believe they imploded. I just can't believe they put themselves in position to actually function.
Good. Cordell, I'm sure we'll get to Cordell. Never mind.
I'm not sure if we will, because I don't know if I put him in our in one of these things, but
he looked great.
Yeah, Cordero had the juice, man. He went way too late in redraft apparently. So let's keep moving. We got Jalen Waddle at 13.7 points. It's nice to see that he could be supported along with Tyreek Hill. I think Hill had like 70-something yards or something. He had a bunch of catches, though. So it looks like they can both coexist in that offense so far. Jerry Jeudy had a big catch from Russell Wilson. I think it was a 60-something yarder, like pretty long touchdown. But Jeudy showed me on that touchdown some serious juice. I didn't think he had that kind of juice. Like, I thought he was more of like a 4 or 5, like no acceleration route runner kind of guy. That actually looked pretty solid.
It's amazing the juice that gets into the receivers when they know they have a quarterback.
Yeah, maybe they just were like, hey, we don't have to deal with Drew Lock anymore. Maybe we'll try.
Sutton hasn't moved like that in probably a year or two. So they both look good. I know we have like a threat of that already, but they're both going to be great this season.
Yeah, I'm not. After seeing the whole game, I think there's still plenty more upside for both players and that offense as a whole. Michael Pittman, 19.1 points, literally had a bazillion targets. It's exactly what we thought he was going to be. I just got to hope that he has more opportunities in the red zone and hope that he gets more defenses like Houston. That also helps the cause. But he looked good.
Is this giving you Matt Ryan to like Julio Jones vibes where he gets all the yards and no touchdowns yet?
I mean, it's possible. And I was watching a decent chunk of that game. It seemed like they were targeting everybody but him in the red zone. So it does kind of give me similar vibes where I think Alec Pierce dropped 2 touchdowns and then Ashton Dulin dropped 1. And it's like, might as well. They didn't even try to target Mo Alley Cox. They didn't. I don't know what the red zone offense is with Matt Ryan, but it seems like he always targets everybody but his number 1. So let's go to these duds, or if you want to call them duds. 2 injuries at the top of the list with Higgins and Mitchell. Just shitty luck on those 2. Higgins looks like he should be back for week 2 with a concussion, and Mitchell's down for quite a while. So Alex is going to have to replace some of that starting potential with somebody else on his roster.
Yeah, I'd say the only dud this week for him is ETN, just because he dropped 2 touchdowns.
Dropped 2 touchdowns and ceded a lot of work in the round, or in the red zone and running game to Robinson, who I think a lot of people did not expect to carry the ball that much week 1, but he really did. So
I'm so happy he looked so good.
He didn't look any different to me, so I was all about it. I mean, he gives me so much, and I think it's just because he plays for the Jags and he's kind of stubby. He just gives me so many Maurice Jones-Drew vibes. Like it's probably if you put him on any other team, I wouldn't say that, but just the Jags gives me those vibes. So, I mean, really, at the end of the day, you got to love the offense, the offensive output from the Muskrats. They really put up a good fight in this game. Nobody expected them to win, really, except for one guy, I think, in the league. And week 2, I can't remember the matchup, but the Muskrats look good going into week 2 here. So let's go to the third matchup, and it's the Lionheads versus the Elk. I thought this would be a much closer game. I was very wrong. There were some serious duds in this game, and we'll get to that in a second. But let's start off with some of the studs. Kirk Cousins over Aaron Rodgers turned out to be the absolute right decision. That was a nice move by Vince to get that going early in the season. Cooper Kupp, we talked about already a little bit. The dude's just going to get 1 million targets. Matt Stafford loves him. I don't see any. Well, I don't want to say any, but I don't see a chance for him busting this year, as opposed to meeting his potential. He's going to get it. Scary Terry, see what he can do with a real quarterback.
I mean, it was mostly on one play, but I mean,
it was a nice play.
he's fast as fuck, so it doesn't matter. He's going to get those chances.
It's just amazing. Like we were talking a little bit earlier about how many times they threw. Because if you think about who got the touches this week, I think Samuel had 10 targets, probably 10 combined targets, the running backs. Then Dotson had targets, and McLaurin had targets, and Logan Thomas had targets. So it's just, there's so many guys now, and it seems like they could be supported as of right now.
I was wrong. He only threw like 42 times in that game. I don't know how.
I mean, that's still a lot. I mean,
it is a lot, but it
feels like it should be more in my head.
Real.
Yeah, I guess they just didn't use like any of those like 4th and 5th secondary targets. So McLaurin, he's the key for McLaurin is he looks good, and so far Wentz looks good, and that's really, for a wide receiver 3, I think, on this team, that's really all you're asking for. Christian Kirk looked excellent week 1, got a ton of slot targets, which is pretty much what most people expected, I would say. But the output was excellent. He got to 110 yards, I believe, hit the bonus point there. So pretty sweet start for Christian Kirk.
I don't think he's going to be like consistently going over 100 yards, but I would imagine he's going to have a lot more good weeks than bad weeks this year. I just think that's going to be kind of a norm for that Jags team.
Yeah, they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. Well, not shootouts, but they're going to be playing from behind. So they're going to be playing with quite a few opportunities for the receivers. Let's go to the other side of the screen. The obvious big dud for this week was Cam Akers. It seems like he's in the doghouse for one reason or another, because there is no real reason for him to not be playing 3 carries. I think he got 3 carries total.
Apparently, the game plan was it Kyren Williams? Who's the third back that got hurt?
Yeah, Kyren Williams, yeah.
Apparently, he was supposed to be the second back in week 1. But
I had heard that too, and I also was listening to something with Charlie Campbell of Walter Football, who told him, like, previous to week 1 that Cam Akers literally was in the doghouse for some reason, and that's why they'd made that decision to give Kyren Williams more touches. So I don't know if that's going to be a recurring thing or if he can get his shit together quickly. But
I mean, is he
right
startable?
now, I'm not going to start him next week if I had him.
I wouldn't either. But Vincent,
I would wait it out.
The strength of his team is not his running back depth. So
we talked about it last week in the preview episode. It's like he needed Javonte and Akers to do the job, and he got one of the two to do the job. But now it's a little bit of panic mode for the Akers owners out there.
I wouldn't be overly excited about. I mean, Javonte was great, but like I think
the usage is still weird.
I think the usage was closer to 50-50 than people thought it would be.
I mean, I said last week that I expected, man, maybe this happens over time, but I expected him to get more of a 70-30 split just based on his talent. Like, you're just going to not be able to take him off the field. But it doesn't.
Melvin's going to be the goal line back there.
It seems like it. And
I know they both fumbled, but those 2 fumbles were created very differently to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't even read into those. I mean, fumbles happen. I mean, but unless they happen multiple weeks over and over, then we got a problem. But for Akers, I mean, it's gonna be hard to start him next week with any confidence. That's for sure. Miles Sanders, he is not a dud. I just threw him over here because I didn't have any other space, and there wasn't really a lot of duds for the Lionheads. He started a pretty good lineup, so Sanders exceeded my expectations for
the
week one.
whole rushing attack looked good. The Lions,
they couldn't be stopped.
Yeah,
on the ground. I think Boston Scott also had a touchdown too.
All three backs had a rushing touchdown and Hurts.
Yeah, I thought I have Hurts, so obviously I was like hoping for like a goal line, passing touchdown, but they all just seem to be on the ground. So, good week for the Eagles offense for sure. And then Darren Waller, 7.9 points is just fine considering the added targets for Devontae Adams. He looked fine. I think the big rut row is Renfro didn't look like he was going to get used a ton. So just week one though, so there's still time on that. Let's go down to the Elk, who had a very disappointing week. Let's start with the duds on this one. David Montgomery, 5 points in that slop fest. I don't even honestly like that game was such a shit show from a weather standpoint. I have a hard time even like evaluating any players like talent. I mean, usage is one thing, but like how can you even function on that field? I have a hard time. I just almost want to throw it away and just see whatever happens next week.
It normally wouldn't bother me, but Herbert looked pretty good.
Herbert when he got his touches, it seemed to be more explosive for sure, and he got the touchdown, which is interesting. But I mean, as far as Kmet and Mooney, the passing game, we know it's not going to be good there, but I don't think it was going to be this bad, and I think that has something to do with the weather. So I'm going to give it till
only
next
8
week.
Completions in that game for Fields.
It's just not enough.
That's not going to be the norm.
I really hope not. But a 0 from Kmet after everybody kind of expected more targets, especially in a game where you would expect them to throw more short passes, just didn't happen. So it was very interesting. And then Amari Cooper with 1.7, not good at all.
Roasted.
I'm not so sure that Cooper is going to be startable in the coming weeks, but I think you almost have to based on name and targets.
Is he like Peoples-Jones? I think is the number one on that team.
He had like 10 targets or something. He had a ton of targets, 60 yards or something. So the duds on that team not looking great, and those are the ones that really hurt the Elk. I mean, those are 4 quality players that just didn't even show up basically. Other side, I actually threw Kamara in the left side because I didn't have anybody else for studs, so he was kind of the best one on there at 4.6 points. Not a great opening week for him at all. I expected much better against the Falcons defense, that's for sure. But
apparently he's playing with a rib injury. I didn't know that until today.
I didn't know that until just now. So, brand new information
for a guy that like has such great like contact balance, I guess is the right way to say it. Like I imagine a rib injury is not great for his smaller stature, but I don't know. I hadn't heard about it until today. Like I just like came across it, but
yeah, that's brand new information for sure. That's not good for him. Let's see. I think this is Damian Harris at 8.6 points. That's fine. And it seems like he might get more work now with Montgomery going to IR. Probably not so much in the passing game, but maybe a few more carries. I think it benefits Ramondre Stevenson a little bit more.
It benefits the entire team if they just run the ball more. So
yeah, I think you just want to pass.
That team is just a lame duck. They suck.
I think, and their defense was such a disappointment week 1 too. They couldn't do anything. It's gonna be a weird year for New England. I don't really want any part of it, to be honest with you. So I got Ramondre in redraft. I'm not really thrilled. So Rashad Bateman had a touchdown catch, a really nice touchdown catch.
Saved his day.
However, I am frustrated with Rashad Bateman for one reason. He was number 12 last year. Excellent wide receiver number. 12 is a good one. What does he switch to this year? Freaking 7. What the hell? That's a downgrade on my board. He gets that. I'm not a fan. I mean, I love Rashad Bateman, but I don't like the 7. So maybe that'll hurt the performance. But it definitely takes a notch down on my board just for the number choice. And then Kyler Murray at 25 points. That Cardinals team looked like ass. They just sucked.
I
Uh,
said it before the season started. I will say it again. They're bad, and they will finish with a top 10 draft pick in the draft.
I have a hard time arguing that after week one. It's just crazy because from a defensive standpoint, they've invested so many resources in these high draft picks into players that just aren't that good. Zaven Collins was, I think, it's a number 11 or 12 overall pick a couple of years ago at linebacker, and he's just garbage. Isaiah Simmons is garbage. Basically, the entire middle of their defense is not good, and they're going to get run all over every week if that's the case. So there's another team that we'll talk about a little bit later that their run defense was very disappointing that we'll discuss. But yeah, I don't like the Cardinals at all this year as far as their defense goes. The offense still has upside.
Start everybody if you have that matchup this year.
Yeah, it's looking decent. So yeah, the Lionheads get to 1-0. The Elk drop to 0-1. The Elk are actually in 9th place below the Cheese Fries, which is a bit of a surprise to me week one. So the Elk really need a rebound week 2 here. Let's go to the next game, and it is the Bombers versus the Cheese Fries, and the Bombers took the 116-102 victory. A pretty close game, and really only because of Patrick Mahomes. The 45.9 is ridiculous. I think
Don't discount Dotson.
What's that?
Don't discount Jahan Dotson.
Okay, he did his job. He did his job. But the 45 from Mahomes almost outscored my entire team. So that man, what a great Donnybrook that would have been if I played him this week. I play Pat Mahomes and Jahan Dotson and I lose. That's insane. I started so many. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Let's keep going down the list. Drake London actually looked really good with his 5 targets and 5 catches, I believe. So way better than Pitts looked yesterday. Pitts didn't do any, or
we'll get there.
I mean, he didn't do anything. Jahan Dotson it looked pretty good. I mean, I'm one of his biggest critics. There's nothing bad to say about his week 1 performance. Had a great clutch catch too, for that touchdown towards the end of the game where he went up and got it over a guy, and he's like 5'9". So I was very impressed with that. Isaiah McKenzie at 7.9 caught the 1 touchdown. Not a whole lot else, but it's nice to see that he's on the field.
That touchdown came after he dropped and created an interception. So
yes, I forgot about that.
Back on the field, so it's good.
He made it forgettable very quickly. Dawson Knox is probably the biggest disappointment at 0.55 yards. Literally just not used. Hopefully there's better weeks ahead for that one. Sky Moore had 3 points, wasn't overly used. I think he had like just 1 or 2 catches. But I think he also graded out, I saw this on Twitter today, he graded out as PFF's highest rookie this week. So even with 30 yards, he must have just been winning every route. So good for him. And then Garrett Wilson, another promising rookie, that offense is such a shit show. I don't know what the Jets are doing. But it seems like all 3 of the receivers, Garrett Wilson, Corey Davis, and Elijah Moore, all kind of caught 50 to 65-ish yards, and none of them really impressed anybody really. So that is Tibbs' squad. And then we'll go over to the Bombers, who I would say left some points on the field for sure. I think the Bombers could have definitely gotten more points from some of their top guys. And let's start right there, actually. Kyle Pitts, 1.9. It's just not what you want to see. I really am. Every time he catches the ball, though, it's just like you just watch him run, and it's like this man is a gazelle. He looks so much better than everybody on the field. So it just amazes me when they don't get him the ball. It just frustrates me.
I was listening to another podcast, and they were doing like a week 1 like bad take overreactions just to like complain about their fantasy teams. And one of the people asked is like, is Kyle Pitts Jared Cook with a better PR team after me?
That's pretty funny. It's so crazy because I don't even like it's athletically they have similar traits, but it's like Kyle Pitts is quite literally a receiver. He's just a big receiver. Like Jared Cook had the overall size, but like if you just like look at Pitts, it's like this guy is not a tight end, but he is. So the fact that he's listed as a tight end is obviously great, and he can't block worth a shit. But what do you care about? But it's just amazing that they just don't find ways to get him the ball sometimes. It's like, how does this guy not see the ball, especially in the red zone? One touchdown last year is it's just unexplainable. I don't understand. Let's see. Let's move on to the studs. Joe Burrow somehow managed 23 points with 5 turnovers.
He had negative points at halftime.
5 turnovers. So Sean, he had 4 picks and a fumble loss. That's incredible. There's brighter days ahead. I think that was just a Russ thing.
What a gamer.
He is a gamer for sure.
Got dog in him.
He's got some dog in him for sure. I think brighter days are definitely ahead. I think that was kind of a tune-up game for Burrow, who didn't play at all in the preseason because of his appendicitis, I think. And then Chase obviously is attached to it. Let's just talk about that stack for a while for the Bombers. That's going to be a nice stack for years to come. Pretty damn good. So good on you for creating that stack. Gabe Davis looked freaking legit week 1 on that kickoff game. I was a little skeptical on his ADP and redraft because we hadn't really seen a full season of anything, but so far it looks good. He got targeted quite a bit and made the most of his targets. And then Marquise Brown salvaged a decent game at 10.3 points. I'm okay with that too. So Bombers cheese fries, actually somewhat of a closer game than I thought. I think James picked the cheese fries in an upset somehow. Or somebody picked them. I can't remember, but
just real quick, I know you have Juju on the disappointing side, but like the way he was getting used by the Chiefs, I would feel really good about him the rest of the year.
Yeah, and he wasn't so much a disappointment. It was just kind of that was. I mean, it seems like they're going to use him quite a bit, so I think that's fine. I mean, Elliott too on that side. I don't feel good about any Cowboys player at this point. I think you got to start looking at other options as your RB. I guess that would be his RB1 on this team. And he's also got Josh Jacobs as his RB2. So both of those guys are not overly inspiring right now. So he's going to need receivers to carry this team for sure. So let's move on to our last matchup, and it is our wonderful matchup where I lost by 100. And my team was so bad that I had to put on my stud side, I had to put benched players. Because I didn't like him and Pacheco. I didn't put the B in, but I literally had 3 or 4 players with 0 points, and I really didn't. There was no tanking at all involved in that. They just literally didn't do anything. Perfect example. Alec Pierce decided he just didn't want to catch 2 touchdown passes. Total complete drops. So he dropped. That first one was awful. Like and that was Scott Potter. Like, I mean, it was a clanker. And then Isaiah Likely had 4 targets, didn't catch any of them. Not great there. And then there's a few others that were very disappointing. Mike Davis literally had 1 carry or 2 carries or something. He's just going to get cut at this, but I don't even want to see him on my team.
J.K. Dobbins is now full participant, so I don't.
Yeah, and I heard Gus is getting closer too, so he's going to be an easy cut in a week or two. I guess the positives on my side, Hurts looked really good. You're the Eagles fan, so I can let you talk about that.
From a fantasy standpoint, yeah. Yeah, sure.
I mean, it's always been about fantasy. It's not about. I don't care about the regular game.
Do you want me to go on like a diatribe of like everything that looked awful with the Eagles this week? I can.
I mean, the guy is going to run for 50 to 60 yards a game and hit a floor of 20. It seems like every game.
Yeah, the great thing about fantasy for Jalen Hurts is he doesn't know how to read a progression past 1 before he just drops his head and he runs.
He's everything I don't want in the real NFL.
Exactly.
Like when I look at quarterbacks, I've always been about the guys that can get through reads, and those are the guys that usually succeed. It is not him.
He's either 1 read and run or RPO, which I know sound like the same thing, but just the way like that they function the offense, like it is different.
And I mean, you can win in the NFL with a guy like that. You just have to have excellent pieces everywhere else, which they kind of do. So it's like as long as the defense can pull it together and they can
At some
score.
point, he's going to be forced to like throw over the middle. Like a team will play him like the Bucks did last year in the playoffs.
Yeah, the playoff game was literally you can't throw your first read and you're just gonna be fucked the whole game.
Yep.
So it's possible that stays that way. But I thought there would be a little more progression year 1, year 2 as a starter. Not really so far. So Hilliard had 18.9 as a bench player for me. I did not expect him really to touch the ball at all, and he's going to have to start this week now. So he's in there.
If they're in a negative game script, he's not that bad of a start, to be honest.
He caught the ball decently too. For most teams, he's like a flex play. So if you need him basically, but for my team, he's a bona fide RB1. So Isaiah Pacheco at 12.2 points really only played in the end of the game once that game was out of hand. That being said, I watched his tape. He was playing against the starters and looked explosive. So I was impressed.
Yeah.
I don't think really this year, it seemed like with Clyde playing well as well, I have a hard time believing he's going to get a ton of carries, but he's going to beat out McKinnon by the end of the year for sure for that RB2 spot, I think. So he'll be fine. And then Ayuk had 4.7 points in that slop fest. Like I said, I'm not even worried about Ayuk. I think he'll be fine in future weeks, but that game was just a joke. Let's get to the team that matters. Your team had 154, a pretty damn good opening week.
I would feel more like good about Ayuk though going forward. I think Debo's going to have to slot back into the backfield more now.
Yeah,
it's probably more targets for Ayuk, you would assume. But anyway, sorry, we can go. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I feel good about Ayuk moving forward. But let's get to your team because I think yours has more talking points for sure. I think the biggest talking point, I think we all know Taylor is going to get a ton of carries and be good, so we can just skip that.
The Texans.
Edwards-Helaire at 19.4 points. Really, it has to be encouraging week 1, right?
He did what I expected him to do. I'm not even lying. I expected him to be a running back close to 1 this week. So
he did it for sure. So
yeah, they stopped playing because they didn't need him.
But the key is not only was the production there, but he looked good.
Yeah,
like he looked like he knew what he was doing and belonged. Whereas other times I watched him, I'm like, I don't know about this guy. I don't see it. But now I saw it this week for sure. AJ Brown in his debut got a ton of targets and looked pretty damn good. I was a little concerned, but I'm not that concerned anymore. I think I'm much more concerned for Devontae Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kareem Hunt outscores Nick Chubb week 1. How do you feel?
Would you look at now? He's an efficient back. He's really good. They're both great backs. I was just trying to prove a point by being an asshole, but they're both great. I still honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Kareem Hunt got traded like halfway through the year. So,
their season's lost already. They might as well just trade him and get what you can at this point. He's not coming back.
They're 1-0 and they're playing. They're playing like the Jets or somebody this week. They could be 2-0.
I don't even want to. If that game is on my television at all, I don't want to see it. I just don't want to see it.
Some bottom feeder this week. I know that. But.
All right, let me take a look. Hold on. It'll take 2 seconds. If my iPad will load. Okay, never mind. Forget it. Then we got DJ Moore. I need more production. I need it because 5 points ain't going to be enough. It's the story of his career. You can't feel too happy about that, right?
Yeah, that's probably the one this week that's got me worried just because Robbie Anderson had out-targeted him. I wouldn't bother me if if he had more yards because Robbie Anderson's pretty prone to breaking off a big play. But the targets was concerning. I think that goes along with the CMC thing. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah, I just think that offense just stinks, and I think the coaching stinks there, and that does not make me excited at all.
Isn't McAdoo the OC?
Sure is, Sean. They got rid of Joe Brady, who was actually decent, and replaced him with Ben McAdoo. I don't know what the fuck.
God help me.
It's so bad.
It's gonna be bad.
By the way, that game was the Jets versus Cleveland.
Yeah, that could be 2-0. Then you're looking at like, hey, we could rally and get Watson back and make the playoffs.
I guess. And then week 3 they got Pittsburgh. and week 4 they have the Falcons. So it's not all that bad. Like, looks pretty winnable games.
They're frisky.
Goddard had 6 points. Not a bad performance at all. Pretty fine. I mean, really, I'm not impressed or disappointed.
6 points without a touchdown is fine.
Fine. That's what you're asking for usually, is 6 points and the 50% shot at a touchdown.
Yep.
Sutton, 72 yards in the game. Didn't do a ton early in the game, but really turned it on in the second quarter. Looked pretty good. Nothing really to be worried about there. And that wraps up these reviews. This took way longer than I anticipated. So we're going to have to do the previews in more of a rapid-like state. So let's start off with Sean's matchup against the Elk. So Sean's 1-0. The Elk at 0-1 in 9th place. The Elk need a win after a very disappointing loss. I think this week, Sean, what matchups do you really like this week?
On my team?
Yeah.
I mean, Jonathan Taylor at Jacksonville.
Yeah, so that's a good one.
It's pretty good.
That doesn't suck.
I mean, Sutton at Houston or in home against Houston's great. Kareem Hunt against the Jets, also good. Melvin, obviously home against the Texans. I mean, they're great. I don't know if I've completely set my lineup yet or not.
Yeah, I think it's tough because we still have some time here before people really truly finish their lineups. So it's hard to really make some definitive calls on some of these yet. But
I could flex on Dustin and start KJ Hamler this week just because he traded him to me
and get 0 points. He wouldn't do that to you, no. Dustin has a couple of good matchups. It kind of depends on how many of these Bears he starts again, because the Bears are playing Green Bay, who looks like they can't play defense. And it's unfortunately it's in Green Bay, so I feel like that's not going to bode too well for the Bears. But he does have Kyler Murray against the Raiders, who didn't look all that good in week 1 on defense.
Outside of their front four, they do not look good on defense.
No. They haven't had a secondary for years. It's been a long time. Sean, who do you pick to win this game? I assume you, right?
Me. I'm catching Dustin with his team kind of reeling, to be honest. Najee Harris is hurt, but looks like he's going to play.
Yeah, apparently he's playing is what I saw. But
I don't know if you want that, honestly, if you're Dustin.
I need Jaylen Warren shares to hit, so I hope he doesn't play.
Sometimes you honestly just hope that a guy sits out for a week and gets healthier and then plays. I think this is one of those situations with Harris.
Yeah. I mean, I think you wait, especially because it's a New England game. They're not that scary defensively. Yeah. I mean, and then Kamara's banged up too.
And he's playing the Bucks, which is not a great matchup.
Usually not good.
They're very good against running backs.
I'll tell you what, Dallas is running the shit out of the ball the first quarter of that game. They just gave up on it. So I don't know what the hell is going on.
The way Kamara is used with the speed of the linebackers on Tampa, like I like that matchup for Tampa a lot against them. But I mean, and then you've got Chicago, which I honestly, like, you throw that game away, like, what does this offense look like?
We still don't know. It's a complete unknown.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what we said last week. So not great. Yeah, I'm picking the long gamers here as well. Let's go to the next matchup. We got the Lambs versus the Cheese Fries, both 0-1. James, had a tough matchup last week, and the Cheese Fries really kind of hit their cap last week as far as points to expect. Maybe a little bit more from a couple other guys. Maybe like 110 is more like it, but I'm going James here for sure. James's team is just much better at almost every position, except tight end. Dawson Knox I like better than Austin Hooper. I'll say that.
He's got Tyler Conklin.
Oh, geez. Don't let me disrespect Tyler Conklin. How did he do week 1?
He had a touchdown.
7 points.
Yeah.
7 targets.
7 targets. Like
14 yards.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, the yacker, not what you want.
He is not what we call an athletic tight end.
Catch the dinker and fall down.
Jeez. James still needs a tight end, I guess. Yep. I think there's, if from a Tibbs perspective, you had a lot of these guys London, Dotson, Peoples-Jones, all young guys that really did play well week 1. So there is something to look forward to here for sure.
Upside on receiver on that end, and then very severe worry for receivers on James's team.
I am Concernicus for sure. CeeDee Lamb is down bad, and Mike Evans apparently has a hamstring or calf or something.
And he's playing the Saints, which has not been his favorite place to play football.
No, that was basically Mike Evans. What he does in every Saints game is just yap the entire time to their team and draw PIs. That's what he does.
Yep.
So I'm not surprised, but it seems like they have a totally different secondary these days. So maybe it won't be that way.
Brandon Cooks is catching Surtain this week, so not great.
Surtain is a tough draw for sure. He let up a few catches last week, but not much.
Yeah.
I think there's not a whole lot more to discuss on that matchup. I think we're good there. Let's move on to the Lamppost versus the Bombers. This could be a big statement game for the Bombers. I don't think they're going to win. I think the running backs are a little bit too down in the dumps right now for me to really feel confident about picking them against a stud team like the Lampposts. You got Zeke and Jacobs that really didn't do anything week 1, and I don't see it improving this week, but I could be surprised. However, if he gets Burrow on track without the 5 picks, you get another great game out of Chase and a few others straggled in. It could be a closer game than people expect. What do you think?
I think that Josh Allen and Dalvin Cook are going to win this game by themselves.
Okay. Interesting.
If the Eagles play Dalvin Cook like they played Swift last week, which was 2 deep safeties and only playing 2 linebackers against the running game,
yeah, it's not going to work.
Dalvin is going to absolutely burn everybody. And then Josh Allen is playing Tennessee.
And Gibson against Detroit.
You
love to see that.
Like just that top 3, like when you look at the matchup against the other top 3, like Dallas's defense did not look bad.
They were fine. I thought they did a great job of bending but not breaking. And they didn't really let up any red zone. They were great in the red zone. There was like 4 or 5 stops that they had. So I don't think their defense is the issue in Dallas. That's for sure. But there's still upside over here on Justin's team. I mean, you got Mike Thomas, who looked really good. Gabe Davis looked really good. Pitts could have a much better week.
I'm interested to see how that, if he bounces back.
If we get another 2.6 performance, I'm going to be pretty damn disappointed from Pitts. All right, let's move on. We got the Lionheads versus the lowly Armadillos. Definitely go on Lionheads. I hope I can score 75 points this week and actually look like a team that belongs in this league.
You had 84 projected points.
Apparently I left the most points on the table last week, so not great. But I would like to see us get to that 70 burger at least. And I think we should do better because we actually have running backs that have a line to decent work this week. You got Jeff Wilson, who's actually going to play, and then Jalen Warren should get more touches than usual with Najee being banged up. So we'll see what happens. But I think the matchups I'm most excited for is Javonte against Houston. You got to imagine that if there's any game where it's a total breakout game for Javonte Williams, it would be this one. I also think Josh Palmer as a wide receiver is a pretty sneaky little play. I think he's going to do well if Keenan has to sit for a game or 2. And then I love the hustle that he's giving his starters a rest this week and putting them in the flex. He's got Debo and Kupp in the flex. So when you go against a team like the Armadillos, it's nice to rest a few guys. So yeah, I'm gonna move on to a game that actually has some implications, and we're going to the Battle Axes versus the Muskrats. The Muskrats had a great week 1, all things considered, and has a really tough matchup again this week. He got Dan last week, and now he gets Scavelli. Is his week 3 James by chance? That would be interesting. If he has the 3 hardest, that'd be crazy. He does not.
He's playing Tibbs.
Okay, so he gets a softie next week to bounce back from, because
Yeah.
it's very possible he starts 0-2 and has a grand majority of the points, probably like third or fourth in the league if he keeps it up. So not a great opening schedule for the Muskrats, but the Battle Axes looked pretty damn good week 1 and still had some points left out there. You seen anything that catches your eye, Sean?
I mean, I love Swift against Washington. He's got a great opportunity to really start the year off really strong, back-to-back strong starts.
Pittman on Jacksonville.
Pittman, he's on the injury report with a quad, but I don't think that's going to be anything by the time.
Oh my God, Barkley against Carolina. Oh no. Oh
that
no.
One, that could be dangerous.
That could be a 200-yarder.
I mean,
I'm a little. I will say actually now that the Cowboys are down Dak. Schultz takes a pretty decent hit there, right? Or do you think maybe he's going to be okay with more targets?
I mean, his average depth of target isn't that deep anyway, so you.
No, he's not a burner.
That's a friendly. It's a friendly target for a backup quarterback. So we'll see. They don't. It doesn't seem like they utilize their running backs to catch the ball. Like
they kind of don't, unless they're like those Tony Pollard like designed flare outs or screens and shit.
Yeah. So he should be there. He should be available to catch 5-yard dump passes. But I mean, I think that's all you're going to be getting from him.
I want to see something from Breece Hall. That's what I want to see. I feel like he was invisible week 1. I didn't see him anywhere on red zone.
Michael Carter was the guy.
Yeah. He only had 6 carries, but he had 10 targets in the pass game. So Joe Flacco knows a check down when he sees him.
He was. By the way, over under how many yards passing do you think Joe Flacco had? 300. Higher or lower?
Last week?
Yeah.
I mean, lower probably.
Well,
no, he had. That's not. Yeah, because he had, like I said earlier, Moore, Davis, and Wilson all had like 50 to 70-ish yards. So yeah, I guess when you count that with the receivers and tight ends, makes some sense.
You said Hall had 10 targets. Michael Carter had 9.
20 targets almost.
19 targets to running backs.
Oh my God. Well, good flex play at very minimum with those targets. You're gonna get yards.
Yep.
I'm going Battle Axes in this matchup. I think the Muskrats just got another bad draw.
Yep. Same.
All right, so that wraps up our look ahead to week 2 here. We got a game tomorrow. It is a doozy of a game.
It's the best Thursday night game we've ever had.
And is it on Amazon? Is that what I saw?
Amazon.
All right, so I gotta make sure that app is ready and downloaded. Should be good to go though. That's gonna be a doozy for sure. I'm excited for that one. I think both of those offenses are clicking. It sucks that Keenan can't play if he's not gonna play, but but those I'd love to see both those offenses at full power. All right, so this is the first time on the podcast that we're doing this, but Scavelli went 5-0 last week in the minigame. You also went 5-0, but I gave it to Scavelli. And I chose one player on his team that I wanted to look at more in depth from a film standpoint. So I did some film work and I cut up 3 plays that I thought were interesting from this player, and it's going to be Saquon Barkley. So everybody knows he's very talented, but what is it that makes him so good? And these were things where I was watching the tape. I was like, okay, last year he wasn't doing some of these things. He's being very tentative. And then mostly because he was injured and the blocking was terrible. This past week looked very competent, the offensive line. And let's go right into a few of these plays. So I'm going to pull it up and I will show you a few plays. This one was a toss play. You got a couple of pulling guards. I don't think they'll be able to see my mouse, which is unfortunate. But you got a couple of pulling guards, and basically he's going to. And let me preface this: if you look at on the bottom left of the screen, there's a safety number 37. I didn't even have a chance to look up his name. This man got his soul taken away a few times, and we'll see it.
Well, that's the strength of the Titans too. Their safety play is.
Well, Kevin Byard is sick. I don't know who this other guy is, though, to be honest with you. I have no idea. But 37 had a rough one out there. So let's go ahead and look. So right here, he's making a play, makes a cut, and he basically wipes out two guys, right? So if you saw it,
No murder.
And it's just, you have to respect his speed because he's so fast. So let's go to this other angle. This is a much better angle. So you're going to watch 37 on the right side of the screen and watch, I believe, 51 or 41, one of these linebackers. They basically both fall for the same thing that Barkley has set up. So Barkley sets up like he's running outside the entire time. He is basically only trying to avoid Bud Dupree here, number 48 on the right. He's the outside linebacker. He's the only guy that he really has to avoid in the early part of the carry. So let's load that up. So right here, he's looking. He sees the gap between number 3 and 13. He hits that gap with pretty easy, I don't want to say easy, but he has to get by 48 here out of an arm tackle. Does that no problem. Now here, he looks at both these guys and sees that he could just run to the edge, or he could go straight with it and with this little jump cut and just watch 51 and 37 go flying, because I don't think there are many other guys in the league that can make anybody do this. They just literally get evaporated. And that's 6 extra yards. So that happened at like the 25, and he's at the 31 by the end of the tackle. It's just outrageous. And at the speed that it's happening, too. Here's the whole clip. So sexy.
It looks like a guy that's not worried about his knees.
That's my next point, is that does this guy look hurt to you right now? He looks confident.
It's amazing what a 2 new tackles will
I know.
And a fresh offseason will do for you.
All right, so that's the first clip. Second one, interesting here. It's a little stretch run, and this is the one that I wanted to show. Mostly, the end of the run is great. He's getting a ton of yards, but it's what he does to 37 to set up this play. So basically, you get to right here. He doesn't have much to do with 26. 26 he's not even looking at him. That's how fast he is. He knows he could beat him. 41 he basically at this point in the run can go either left, right. I think he feels 98 Simmons closing on him. I love this guy too. I don't know who this guy is in the middle of the screen, just blocking no one. That's my favorite player. But basically, most people would say, "Oh, okay, you could go either way on this one." He basically looks. If you look at his head, he is looking at this hole and holds 37 just long enough. So 37 is thinking that there's a chance that he might go to his right. So he hesitates, and that's all it takes for him, because he's so fast to get to that next level. So watch again, 37. Hesitate just enough right there, and that's all he needs to blow right past him and get freaking 70. I think it was a 68-yard run or something like that. It's just amazing how such a small and simple thing, when you're this talented, how it can turn into such a huge play. It's right here. He stops and he hesitates for that 1 second, and boom, he's gone. Totally insane. Barkley is a freak. It's all about health, and it seems like the offensive line is blocking. If you go back, like, they're actually doing a pretty decent job here. I mean, you got 76, John Feliciano coming out on 41, does a great job. 75, 73, I think it's Evan Neal. I think he's a rookie. I'll kind of remember. He ain't doing shit out there. But yeah, it looks good. And then the last one, this is for the football guys like me, right? Look at his chip. Get down. Bud Dupree hits him hard right in his damn chin. Watch his hair fly. Watch the head buckle. Down. Of course, the rest of the line can't block. But he does his job. He did his job, right? That's not really a fantasy play, but Barkley is a 3-down back. He can do it all.
He played 80% of snaps.
played 80%, and Breida, when he was in there, actually looked halfway
He
decent
looked
too.
good too. Yeah, I know. I saw it. I
So-
saw you get that pick. I saw that. Saw that
Okay.
waiver claim.
Hey, if Barkley can't stay healthy, I need everybody I can. But those are just a few plays that I thought were important to see, because if Barkley is back to full strength, which it seems like he is based on those plays, then people got to watch out. He has the RB1 overall potential as long as everything works out. And I think the Titans' run defense that game did not look good. I want to see him do it again against a better team, but I love watching all of that tape on Barkley the other day. So hopefully y'all enjoyed just a couple of clips there. And then we'll do it again next week if somebody goes 5-0 again. And if there's the multiple people that win, I'll just spin a wheel or do some name out of a hat type of deal. And if it's Scavelli again, I'll probably pick somebody else. But just we'll do different players each week as long as somebody goes 5-0. And sometimes there'll be rookies. I actually was going to do Christian Watson for Scavelli, but I wanted something positive on the first one because there wasn't a lot of positives there. And I thought Barkley looked so good that it was worth it. So so that is this week's podcast. We're about 1 hour and 15 minutes. That's about right. And we will do this again. So Sean, thank you for hopping on. Hopefully we'll do the exact same thing next week. And we'll see y'all. Have a great week too.